again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Good afternoon. Welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Eddie Howe's press conference, 23rd of December, 2022, Leicester City away. The game, of course, takes place on Boxing Day. And first up today was Razor from BBC Radio Newcastle. Asked him about the cup draw. He said, well, I asked for a home draw, but it is a tough game. He was asked about the condition of the players physically, and he said physically they are pretty good. Razor then asked him a question about Alexander Isak, confirmed that he won't be available for the next couple of Premier League games, but he is still going to have a big part to play in the season. Also asked about Botman's form. He said, and obviously the fact that he hadn't been picked for his international team in the World Cup, and he just said that his response to not being selected for World Cup duty had been good. He thought that the performance that he put in against Chelsea, was probably one of the best since he came to the club. And he said the advice he's given him is just concentrate on the club and your performances for the club, and the rest will take care of itself. So sound advice from Eddie Howe to Sven Botman, and praising the guy as well. He also said that, there are areas of Newcastle's current squad game that needs to be worked on, but the players are responding to it. Asked about Christmas Day as well. He said that the players would be reporting later than usual on Christmas Day. They would be training and then they would leave. Obviously, they have a trip down to Leicester. He said, you don't need to know the details about my Christmas Day. So didn't want to give too much about what he was doing with his family, and rightly so. Also said that he loved the festive period as a player. He said it's part of what makes the Premier League and the English game special. Razor pushed him a bit more on Leicester. He just said, look, they're a top team and they've got a top manager. They've done very well in recent years, and not a lot has changed from the team that excelled and of course went on to win silverware. So very, very complimentary about our opposition that we'll face on Boxing Day. Next up was Keith Downey, who said, could you draw any comparison between, Leicester and Newcastle United now that we've got our takeover and we are, at the right end of the table? He said you can't compare the teams, that we're actually on our own journey. He said, and, their journey is their journey, and full credit to them for what they've managed to achieve, and, the fact that they've continued to grow. Keith also asked about Isak, and how he dealt, how Isak had dealt with things, on a personal level. And he said it's been very difficult for him arriving at a new club, and then making an impact, but then finding himself out injured for a long period. And he said it happened to him at Portsmouth, and he says from his point of view he felt he was letting his club down. And he said, I'm sure that Alexander will have felt the same way. He says I can't get inside his head, but he said in another way, he says we try to look for the positives, and the positives are that he's come to the club, he's away from the spotlight. Maybe it could have helped him get more comfortable in his surroundings, and essentially get his feet under the table at the club, and when he does come back to play in January, hopefully January, that he'll be in a better position. But as always, Eddie Howe trying to find positives. Keith then asked about the transfer window. Very non-committal on this. He said, I don't really know, what we'll be able to do. He said, we're in a different position to this time last year. He says, we needed to get players in. Obviously, we could spend money because of the situation with the previous owner not spending anything. And, he just basically mentioned financial fair play, not for the first time in this press conference. But he did state that he wasn't evading the question. He said, it's just a very difficult one to answer. Also reiterated something that he said in previous press conferences, which is, you've got to be careful not to unsettle the group. But on the flip side, you've also not got to let the current crop of players go stale, no complacency. So, good answer again from Eddie. Andy Sixsmith was next up. Just wanted to talk about the club and the community and the donations to the food bank that we've seen, and the work that they've done with the food bank in recent weeks. And he said, look, the club's doing some great initiatives off the pitch. So it's part of our DNA and needs to be moving forward. Newcastle United as a football club wants to make a difference in the community, and by helping those less off, it's a good thing. So, full of praise for that. And he was also asking if he'd learned anything from the World Cup. He said, you're always, as a manager, always looking for trends. He says, and, you have to stay on top. He says it spoils watching football a little for him because he watches with a tactical eye. He said, but he got some very interesting things from it. Didn't want to embellish on that, though. Was also asked about momentum and, the break, of course, in the season. Could we lose our momentum? And he said, look, the momentum comes from rhythm. He says the rhythm wasn't there against Bournemouth in the Cup. He says, but, it will come back. I'm fairly sure of that. And, we're going into another phase of training now. So, from his perspective, he's not concerned. I think, the players know what they're doing. They understand his methods, and I didn't get any feeling that Eddie was worried about that. And he also asked him about John Joe Shelby, and he said that Shelby's a key component of the squad and that he's got unique skills, and he's pleased to have him back. And he said, is there anything that you'd like to see, Newcastle do in the second half of this season? And he said, look, we've got to find our attacking intent. He said, which is what we had in abundance in the first part of the season. No backward steps in the first part of the season, so we need to keep on that kind of road. And when he was asked what he wanted for Christmas, and he just basically reiterated he's got a quest for points, nothing more. Nisha from BBC asked him about ASM. He said that he's a massive player, just like John Joe, that he's got the ability to put the opposition on the back foot. He says the challenge for him, because he's coming back from injury, which he mentioned, is to be able to sprint more. He says he's one of the best dribblers at the club, and he just said as well, players are all different. He's been very good in training. He's impressed with his attitude, and that again reiterated something he's mentioned before, that we're, as a football club, Newcastle is trying to work with him on certain aspects of his game. He was asked as well about the Premier League position, and that we're third, and the fact we're third now, is he wanting to stay there? And he just said, look, I haven't looked at the table once. The focus for me is on the next training session. I'll just let things fall into place. Simon O'Rourke asked him from Time Tees just about the break that we've had, and would that change certain clubs' methods and tactics, etc. And he said, yeah, the break will mean a total rest for some. He says, with us, we just need to come back with the key principles in place, and we've been identifying areas to improve, because there are areas to improve. Again, said that some clubs would change their styles, maybe use it as a bit of a reboot. Then we got onto the written press. Damien basically asked him, had he had time to reflect on the season so far, and he said he hadn't, because the best time to reflect on things is at the end of the season. Craig Hope from the Daily Mail was asking about Isak, just trying to get a bit more of an idea of where he's at, and Eddie confirmed that Isak's running and kicking a ball, but he just said, look, you've got to be careful. He says he's re-injured part of his body, and from his perspective, he doesn't want a half-fit player coming back, and again reiterated he would do this with any player. Luke Edwards was just asking about preparation from for opposition, and he said, look, we prepare for the opposition and the game. Players are ready to play in different ways if needed. We can be adaptable. And the start of the season, you always want the team to do well. He says, I'm watching players, but I don't know if we'll be active with regards to the transfer window as well. He was not being vague, but he just can't give an answer on whether we're going to be active in the transfer window. But yeah, he just said, as for preparing for the opposition and the game, that Newcastle are ready to maybe adapt a different style if need be, and the players are good enough to do that. But yeah, very little can be said on the transfer window. Ian Murtagh from the Daily Star basically said, is it, the second half of the season, do you think it's going to be tougher for Newcastle? And he says, I think it's healthy for us to think that way and the players to think that way. He said there's a confidence in our style of play, but we already are thinking like that, and we'll embrace it. And again, he talked about Leicester and just give credit to Brendan Rodgers and their players for turning a poor start of the season around. Miles asked for an update on other injured players. He just confirmed that Kraft and Dummett are both still out. Jordan Cronin asked about Thuram coming to Newcastle. Is it a possibility after St. Maximin had mentioned him in an interview? Eddie just laughed and went, well, thanks for that, Alan. But he just said, look, he's a top player, and I watched him in the World Cup, but that's as far as it goes. I didn't catch the name of the female journalist who asked about mental health and mental stress from those coming back from the World Cup. But he just said, look, he talked to all the players who'd been at the World Cup and they all just wanted to come straight back and play for Newcastle. But he said if he gets a feeling that any of these players have been affected, by this break or the tournament, then he may well give them a break. This question comes because other clubs have allowed certain players to have an extended break or to go on holiday, etc. He's also asked, would he love another transfer like Bruno? He says, of course he would. But, those kind of players are, few and far between, unearthing a gem like that. And he said, but, it's up to us to try and go out and find them. He was also asked whether Isak would fancy playing wide. He said, well, yeah, of course he can, but I don't think that's his preferred position. Lee Ryder from the Chronicle asked him a couple of questions, one about the winter break, and just saying, look, it's going to be interesting to see how it affects players because, of course, lots of people have called for a winter break before this World Cup, and that was the the point of Lee's question. Do you think this may lead to a winter break kind of thing? And he just said, look, I'm sure people will look at it and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Final question in the press conference went to Lee. It was just about left backs, really. Just said, you've got Dan Burn doing so well in that position. He's keeping out Matt Targett. He's got a difficult job ahead. And Eddie Howe just said, look, Dan gives us, he's given us a great option in there. He can play anywhere across the back four. His height's a massive issue for us, a massive bonus kind of thing. But he said, look, Matt Targett's a great left back as well. And he says, and we've got Jamal Lewis biting at their heels. He says, so that's a position that I'm really happy with and that we are really strong in. So all good. Another good press conference, and that is your shortened version. Hope that covers everything for you. We will be back with the three amigos at 5 o'clock, 5 till 7, with a few special guests.
A big thanks to all our sponsors. First off, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. And thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces. They are handmade in Cumbria, and you can find more information out on their website, mrvickies.co.uk. And if you want to order any, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to Blowhole Brewery, a new beer made on Tyneside. The cans are all designed in the colours of Newcastle United's strips from days gone by. Black and white there, the purple and blue, and the good old-fashioned blue from the Entertainers' days. But get more information on the Blowhole Brewery range, such as Geordie Juice, from blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things and video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who do our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the show, then all you need to do is click the subscribe button below. You can also hit the thumb up, which does us a favor by liking the video, and click share to your social media, such as Twitter and Facebook. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify and the rest. And if you want to contribute to the show, use the QR code. It takes you straight to the membership pack and you can join the channel. What do you get for your membership pack? You get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. You can also make a donation by hitting the $sign in the chat tonight. We also give you something for free if you subscribe to the show. To get your car sticker, email john@nufcmatters.com and he will post you one out. We also support the food bank on this show. And if you want to make a virtual donation to the food bank, then go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. On our website, we've got lots of t-shirts, cups, pens, you name it, memorabilia if you want to buy it and support the show. For Christmas, we have the Bruno Christmas jumper, which is selling rather well. And we'll have the bobble hats, Play Like Almiron, Bruno's Magic, and Bruno's 39 and Joe Linton's J7. Get yourself to nufcmatters.com to buy them today. If you want to buy people a ticket for one of our events next year, we've got an evening with Steve Howe, which is Friday the 24th of February at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £50 from nufcmatters.com or newcastlelegends.com. And you can also buy them on voucher before Christmas. Get somebody a bargain and a nice Christmas present. Peter Beardsley is on the 10th of February at St Dom's Catholic Club in Newcastle. Tickets available direct from the venue. And for this one, Friday the 2nd of June next year at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth, 6:30 start. An evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford. To book tickets, contact Natalie at heelandtour.org.uk or visit their website heelandtour.org.uk/events. If you're looking for a Christmas present and people like a book, then get yourself NME from the Bender Squad to the Gremlins, or the last remaining copies of Black or White, No Grey Areas, Lee Clark's autobiography, and you can get them from www.badboysbooks.net.